Hi, thank you so much for joining me for this three-part series on obsessions in the mind and essential oils. So we know that dependency on bad things is usually what's within that. The source of that is there's obsessions going on in the mind. And so we know that at least about how some people can really become dependent and have really bad behaviors because of those obsessions and things happening in the mind, and some people don't have that issue at all. So let's just talk really quick about where those obsessions come from in the first place. Why do some people have that issue and some people don't? And from what I read and what I find is that stress is a huge reason why someone's brain could be under that much stress to where it starts to have ruminating and compulsions and obsessions happening within their mind, because their body and mind and emotions are under an immense amount of stress. And this stress can be anything from trauma to testing poorly on a test to any running late for something, or those kinds of things adding up over time, and just tons of stressful situations adding up over time. And that stress just kind of, just compounding in the mind to where, in order to cope, the mind kind of does those ruminating, obsessive thoughts. And so that's one area where I believe that bad dependencies can come from, is from stress. Another is there's just certain things happening in the person's brain that is different than somebody else's brain. So if you've spent any amount of time researching about dependencies and why some have them and some people have them and some people don't, you will see that the very makeup of somebody's brain, obviously we're all different, right? So the very makeup of the person's brain that's having the dependency issue looks different than somebody else's. It's got different neurotransmitters happening. It's got higher levels, lower levels of certain neurotransmitters, serotonin, things like that, that are happening in the brain that isn't balanced or normal like it should be in somebody's brain that doesn't have any sort of obsessions or dependencies at all. So there's that. There's an actual physical component there that happens with some people that doesn't happen with others. So stress, brain differences, and so those are the things that I found that why somebody would have those sorts of obsessions in the first place. Another possible reason is environmental stress, things like heavy metals and your diet. Some people are way more food sensitive and heavy metal sensitive than other people. For me personally, I have a genetic mutation called the MTHFR mutation that actually, if it's switched on, then it means that my body has a more difficult time detoxing. And so things like heavy metals or certain foods or environmental stresses that are happening and going into my body, I have a harder time getting them out of my body. So I actually have to do a lot more things with supplements and exercise and different things that help me, Epsom salt baths, that help me to really keep helping my body to detox, because it can't detox as well as somebody else who doesn't have that mutation switched on. So there's all sorts of scientific reasons, right? Why somebody would suffer with obsessions and why somebody wouldn't, and why somebody might have a harder time getting over them and getting free from them, and why others don't even understand people like me, maybe you, that have those sorts of obsessions and things going on. So that's just a real brief, basic, overview of some people that have obsessions and some people that don't. Now, where do essential oils come into play? I first began my essential oils journey about a year or so ago, and I've been taking them internally. I've been using them in the diffuser nonstop. I have been putting them on the bottoms of my feet, my face, my neck, my wrists. Anything that goes onto your skin absorbs into your bloodstream within 26 seconds. So that's something very important to know and to start to be aware of. Once I started this essential oil journey, it kind of opened up my eyes to all these other toxins that I was putting in my body, not realizing how damaging that was, especially for someone like me who has obsessive tendencies and who has difficulty detoxing. So, it's very important for someone like me to be eating clean, to be using products that are clean. And so that really does have a big part in how we're doing mentally. And we don't usually know these things because we're not being taught that mainstream, that little things like, what you're brushing your teeth with, if it's fluoride, that's a neurotoxin, and you're not told that. And actually you can get tons of fluoride toothpaste right on the shelf, and your dentists use fluoride, most of them I'm sure, and you're not being told that it's actually a neurotoxin. It's toxic to your brain, and it can actually cause things like obsessions and difficulties with dependence and things like that. It's very important that we are our own health advocate, and that we are researching these things, and that we are aware of what we're putting into our bodies and minds. So, and there's a whole other spiritual side to obsessions and things like that I'm not going to get into today. Maybe the next session I will. But this one I really wanted to just get into the practical, physical side of it, the reality of environmental toxins and environmental stresses, and the reality of those components that it has on our mind and our overall well-being. All right. So again, essential oils, they come into play because essential oils, the molecules in essential oils are so small that they pass the blood-brain barrier, and that's huge. If you're into science or anything like that, you would know that that's a really big deal, and that's a good thing when it comes to essential oils. So things like Valor, that has blue tansy in it, frankincense, which is very high in sesquiterpenes, which is very oxygenating to the brain. We know that when we sniff one of these oils, then it's going directly into our brain, and the essential oils, what they do is they cleanse, reprogram, and oxygenate our cells. And so tons of scientific literature on this, and I encourage you to check it out. Go to PubMed and do some research on it. So there is a scientific component to these oils like Stress Away, that has cedarwood in it, which is another one. Cedarwood is another one of my favorites that is just super high in sesquiterpenes. Very, very good for our brains. So when you're constantly just putting these oils into your limbic system and onto your skin and getting them absorbed into your bloodstream, putting them in your diffuser, and you're just constantly inundating yourself with these miraculous plant oils, you will start to see a great difference in your health. I have just about maybe 5 or 6 months ago, I have been able to fall asleep and stay asleep without needing anything else. Without having to take anything else, or just the oils diffusing and just putting them on the bottoms of my feet, doing that consistently every single night. And I have improved so much just from using the essential oils that I don't need to take anything extra in order to be able to fall asleep. So that's a huge testimony. I have tons more, but I'm at the 10-minute mark and I don't want to go too long. I wanted this session to just kind of be an overview of kind of what I was planning on talking about with you guys, and I hope that this encouraged you and maybe some light bulbs went off. Please feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to talk about this more, and be looking for session 2. Thanks.